Britain is broken, and it was broken before this war, but we're teetering on the brink now. And that is down to this useless, hopeless government. You want the man who's in charge of the country to stop being a lawyer, to stop running away and hiding from the problems, and actually confront them head on and tell us what's going on. And he's not. This will be the most important task of his reign so far. I'd go as far as to say he's been bred for this very moment. I don't care whether Starmer's upset. I don't care what other politicians think about Trump. What I care about is this country and the interest of this country. He wants to follow the EU on everything else, but I will bet my bottom dollar that he does not follow on this. Starmer's done nothing but talk about smash the gangs. We wouldn't need to smash the gangs if we had secure borders. This government and the head of this government doesn't seem to have the guts or the cojones to do what's required.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Expresso. I'm delighted to be in the studio
once
again with Carole Malone.
I'm loving the green.
Thank you very much.
Gorgeous.
Inspired by your jumper last week, actually.
Oh, that's all right. That's good. That's good to be an inspiration.
Carole, let's dive straight into it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how Starmer's responded to the crisis in the Middle East?
Well, what is happening now, I think we're heading towards a situation where the kind of financial disaster that could trigger a general election, that only happens when the economic state of the country is so bad that the country is in danger of collapse. And I think that's where we're heading. And I think that's down to one man. That's down to Keir Starmer and his hopeless government. Here we are, Starmer's trying to say this has all got really bad thanks to the war in Iran and the oil crisis. No, it was bad. The economic situation in this country was bad way before that. And that was down to Keir Starmer as well. And what you see with him, he's had 2 Cobra meetings in the past few days. Where's the plan? The British people want to hear the plan of how he's going to get out of this mess. We know that the last delivery of jet fuel to this country comes here in 48 hours. There's no other delivery scheduled to come. We know that our oil supplies are running low. We're being told we can't drill in the North Sea, thanks to Miliband. So we're in a crisis situation. On top of all of that, we're told the National Health Service today is days away from running short of critical supplies. We have a £3 trillion debt. We pay 100 billion quid a year alone just on the interest on that debt. We have no economic growth in this country. There was nothing in the first quarter of the year. The predictions are that it will remain like that for the next year. Very, very low growth. We have a country that's now defined by worklessness. We have 11 million people not working. All of this is down to this Labour government, which actually supports the feckless and the work shy and actually punishes the strivers, the working and middle class people who do have jobs. And I just think, when you have 11 million people in a country who say, actually, I don't want to work, I'm not looking for a job and I don't want one. And the state says, oh, that's all right, you stay at home, we'll pay you. It's not on. And it certainly is not the message to be sending out to the rest of us. So along with all the other problems that we have with the fuel, with the fact that petrol may in the very near future be rationed, which is going to be catastrophic for industry, for food deliveries, for everything. People aren't going to be able to work. And I think with all of this combined, the future of this country is bleak. Britain is broken. And it was broken before this war, but now we're teetering on the brink now. And that is down to this useless, hopeless government who has no idea what to do. They just, other countries are planning what to do if the petrol runs out, if oil is in short supply. We don't have plans. And if we have, why is Keir Starmer keeping them a secret?
Well, interestingly, this morning at a press conference, Keir Starmer failed to follow other leaders' lead, like in Australia, and just told people to carry on as normal.
I mean, you can't, people aren't carrying on as normal. I just noticed in the petrol stations when there are queues now, people are filling their tanks where they wouldn't usually, actually. They're filling their tanks thinking in a few days' time there's going to be rationing, so I'm going to have enough in the car. So it is this kind of uncertainty. I mean, I've just done a TV show today where viewers were ringing in talking about how the cost of living crisis is affecting them. And, you have people out there who are working, who go to the supermarket, what's in their basket today costs twice as much as it did 2 years ago. And everything else has gone up now, their heating bills. It's just everything all at once. I read a stat the other day that said more than half of the councils in this country are likely to declare bankruptcy by by 2028. 2 years away. And that's despite the fact they're throwing council tax hikes at us like nobody's business. People just don't have any spare money anymore. And what you want from a government in a situation like this is leadership. You want the man who's in charge of the country to stop being a lawyer, to stop running away and hiding from the problems, and actually confront them head on and tell us what's going on. And he's not. And the reason for that is that he doesn't know what to do. And, that's kind of borne out by the fact there was, you'll know this, Steph, there was a story this week saying that of all the new Labour MPs and the interns that came into government here, of 238 of them, most of them they used to work in the charity sector, or they were lobbyists or parliamentary employees. These people have no experience. There's my phone. These people have no experience of the world, don't have any experience in manufacturing and engineering and running a business, nothing. They're just people who worked in charity. If you worked in charity, you think everyone's a victim. Hence our spiralling benefits budget of 100 billion quid. So, yeah, I think we're in dire straits. I think there's an economic tsunami coming. I mean, just read the financial analysts in the papers today. They're saying they have never been more frightened, not because of the situation, but because of the way the situation has been handled by this hopeless government.
And Starmer said today, he admitted that the economic crisis will continue long after the war. But if we think of the short term, you mentioned jet fuel. I mean, summer holidays, that will be a huge stress for a lot of people. Yeah. And then you also touched on food prices there. You need diesel for farm machinery. Of course. The cost of fertilizer is going to rise.
Yes.
That is real hardship for Britons in the very near short term.
All the people he's hacked off, Steph, in the past year, people like the farmers, they're not going to be very willing to come to his aid in a crisis after he's shafted them the way he has. So, all the people he needed, like the people in business and the farmers, all the people he's messed about, they're not going to run to his aid now. In the same way, Trump has said to him today, go get your own oil. We don't need it. We've got plenty. He said, and if you want it, come and buy it from us. And the thing is, we do buy a lot of our crude from the US. And having upset the most powerful man in the world, what is he now going to charge us for crude oil? He's going to double those prices. He's going to hit us as hard as he can. And that's why, you look at this government and their short-termist attitude to everything. This has really exposed them. And Starmer's saying now the problems are going to go on long after the war. They were going on long before the war. What's happened with the war is it's just exacerbated them yet. But what we see from what's happened with the war, other countries are making plans. They've announced their plans. Germany has, France has. They've said what they're going to do. What has our idiotic government done? Nothing.
What do you make of the war of words between Trump, or I guess directed by Trump to Starmer?
Trump can be silly. It's not the diplomatic thing to do, and I can't think of another leader in the world who would say the things he's saying. However, when you look at the guts of what he's saying, it's kind of true. He says that Starmer is weak. He says things like, your military isn't able to cope. That is a fact. He's not dissing the actual men and women who are in the military, not because that's not their fault. It's the fault of this government and previous governments who have not financed the military. And this is the part, when you have a government and a parliament full of Labour MPs who never had proper jobs, never worked in defence, don't understand the importance of it, then you've got a problem. So there's nothing that Trump has actually said about Starmer that's actually wrong. Yes, it doesn't sound good to have the leader of the free world pelting insults at little old Britain. However, a lot of them are justified. And, what he's saying is, look after yourself now, because we're not going to do that. That's terrifying. What that says to me, that's the end of NATO. And Starmer will have helped bring that about.
Well, Trump said that once again today. He is going to consider pulling out of NATO.
Yeah. I'm hoping he won't, and that's not because I agree with what he says or what he does, but I just he protects the rest of us, and that's why it's so short-termist of Starmer to fall out with him. All he had to do at the start of this war, Trump wasn't asking him to fight. He wasn't asking him to send weapons or ships or anything. All he did was asked for the use of the two bases, and stupid Starmer said no. And this is the problem with him. He's surrounded by idiots. He's basically a lawyer. He's not a leader. He did not see strategically what that would mean for us in terms of this war. So now Trump has turned on him. He's got no time for him, treats him with scorn and disdain. And I've got to tell you, I think Starmer earned that. He's earned his scorn and disdain.
Starmer sending the king to the US to try salvage that transatlantic relationship. Do you think that's a good move? Or, I mean, very often on these kinds of trips, monarchs can be gaffe prone. Is there a risk that it ends up being embarrassing for the king?
No, not at all. I don't think. I think it's not just vital that the king goes. I think this will be the most important task of his reign so far. Trump respects the king. He's in awe of the king. He has zero respect for Keir Starmer and the members of his government. So what better person to try and retrieve and revive the special relationship than King Charles? I think Trump is, he's a little bit frightened of Charles, I think, of his intellect, of his position, of his standing, his status. They get on very well. Now, I'm sure Charles wouldn't have him as a best mate, but Charles is a diplomat. He's trained his whole life to be a diplomat. I'd go as far as to say he's been bred for this very moment, because you got people like Ed Davey, the Lib Dems leader, out today saying that the king shouldn't go, of all the insults that Trump has thrown at this country. It's a very short-sighted view. You have to look at the bigger picture. Politics is about bowing down when you need to and being brash when you need to. And this is a case of us having to bow down to protect this country and to protect our interests. I don't care whether Starmer's upset. I don't care what other politicians think about Trump. What I care about is this country and the interests of this country. And the best interests of this country would be served by the US being our special friend, being our ally, being there when we need them to be there. Because what this war has shown is that Britain is not ready to fight a war. Our military have already said that. The Navy has said that. The Army has said that. We're not in a position to be able to fight a war. So what the hell is going to happen to us if that situation comes about? So I think the king will go. I think he will save it. I think he'll pull this round. He will somehow convince Trump that Starmer's got this wrong, and he will somehow convince Trump to help open the Straits of Hormuz, because Trump has already said, I don't need them. That's up to you. If you want the Straits of Hormuz open, you open them. Okay, it's an unreasonable thing to say. However, he said it, and if he means it, we're in trouble. We get no fuel. So I think Charles can pull this round. He is a diplomat first and foremost, and he might be saying everything he says through gritted teeth. Who cares? This will show as well the soft power of the royals, because they have enormous soft power. And to not utilise that in a situation like this is madness. And this shows the immaturity of a lot of our MPs today and a lot of our politicians today, not even just the ones that are in government, but all of them. They think, oh, Trump, tell him to go to hell. No, we can't afford to tell the leader of the free world to go to hell as much as we'd like to. We have to kowtow. We have to do a little bit of grovelling. And if that makes Starmer look daft, well, it won't be the first time he's looked daft, will it?
I guess he'll be hoping that it's not just a short-term wooing of President Trump, and he hopes that those good feelings will remain towards the UK long after the king leaves.
Well, you would hope so, I mean, Trump actually said on Truth Social recently, he said, I love King Charles. Now, how often do you hear him say that about anyone? So I think it is within Charles's power to pull this round. And I think that all the idiot MPs now who are going around saying we should tell them to go to hell, they're not fit to be in power, because then they don't understand what governing is about, if that's what they think. So yeah.
Do you think the special relationship is salvageable? It's not.
I think the key, and not by Keir Starmer and not by this Labour government, but I think the only person who can salvage it is the King and the Queen.
It's let's say you mentioned the general elections earlier. Let's say Starmer, and you've just said that Starmer won't be the one to salvage it. But let's say Labour stays in power. Who then is next best placed?
Oh God! I mean, that terrifies me even more than Starmer, because the talk is it's going to be either Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband. Both of those people would stick two fingers up at Donald Trump and say, "Go to hell." And that's all very well and good for the day, but where is that going to leave us? It's like we're going to talk about immigration in a second, but the minute Starmer got into power, he immediately abandoned the Rwanda scheme. That was a two fingers up at the world saying, and at the Tories saying, this was your idea, it's rubbish. What's happening now in Europe? Europe is now adopting Rwanda-type schemes. So, it's all very well saying you hate Trump and you don't like it, but the next people to come in, I fear, will hate Trump and show their hatred of Trump more than Starmer has. And I think that would be catastrophic for this country.
Let's pivot to immigration, which you've just mentioned there. So Labour is paying £16 million to France for a deal that's going to last just 2 months while negotiations continue over patrols of France in terms of small boats. It does seem like Starmer is choosing the EU over the US. How does that bode for the future of the country?
I kind of wish he was in this instance, because the European Commission has already made clear that it has to stop the huge flows of people coming here illegally. And what they've said is, before they were dead set against any kind of Rwanda-type scheme, now they've come out and said that they're prepared to send people to third countries. They don't even care if they're safe countries now. They just want that they're saying people whose asylum claims get rejected straight to a third country, safe or not, even if the migrant has nothing to do with the country they're sending them to. Now, this is a massive shift. Had we employed the Rwanda scheme when if Starmer let it go ahead, which he foolishly did not as a two fingers up to the Tories, had he let it go ahead, we would now not be in a position of having 40,000 people hit our shores this year so far. I don't see why we need France at all. Why the hell are we paying France? This is a joke. We've paid them the thick end of £500 million over 3 years to do what? Traffic has increased here. It has not decreased. Interceptions have gone down from the French. And why? Because it doesn't suit them to stop migrants coming here, because they stay there. So wouldn't it be better if in this country we just said, OK, we don't want to deal with you, France. And Nigel Farage has said he will do this. Don't want to deal with you, France. We're just going to stop everyone in the Channel and dump them back on you. You're going to get the lot of them. Why aren't we doing that? I don't understand why we're paying France to let people come here. The one-in, one-out scheme, joke, didn't work. So we don't actually need France at all. But, Mahmood, there's a part of me that admires her in saying to them, we want a results-based deal where, we will pay you per, it's not as simple as pay you per head, per migrant, but she wants to pay them on results. I don't think they're going to buy that. Why would they? Not when we see their French coppers on the beaches having a fag and having their lunch while people are clambering onto boats. They're not going to do that. So I think the best thing we could do is to say, we don't need France at all. We're just going to get our boats out, we're going to stop them in the Channel, and we're going to take them back. I don't see the problem with that, because France, after all, is a safe country. So, but you do know that Starmer doesn't have the guts to do that. We know that. But this is what the EU are doing. They are getting very tough on it. They realise the problem. So he wants to follow the EU on everything else, but I will bet my bottom dollar that he does not follow on this. He will not do what they're doing. He will not send migrants to third countries that aren't safe. He just won't do it.
It does feel like the EU's got more bargaining power. If Starmer's so keen on closer relations, then I guess that puts the UK in a tricky negotiating position, doesn't it?
It doesn't matter to Italy who comes here. They don't give a stuff. It doesn't matter to Germany who comes here, as long as they are stopping people crossing their borders. Starmer's done nothing but talk about smash the gangs. We wouldn't need to smash the gangs if we had secure borders. If we had a government that was hell-bent on making our borders impenetrable. But we haven't. The gangs wouldn't exist if we had secure borders. So there are simple solutions to this problem, and yet this government and the head of this government doesn't seem to have the guts or the cojones to do what's required, because of how it looks to the hard left on his party, who think every migrant who wants to come here should come here. Everyone from sub-Saharan Africa, come here. Let's give you a house. If the Greens were in power, that's what they've said they're going to do. Give them all a house. If they don't want to work, well, we'll pay them a national wage. So you might as well hang a sign out and say, come to Britain. And that's what it feels like now to a lot of people in this country. We had that big march, didn't we, last weekend, where they're saying, pro-immigration, whatever. They're not understanding the consequences of that for this little island. The infrastructure of our country has already been badly affected. Try and get a hospital appointment, try and get a GP's appointment, try and get your kid into the school you want them to get. You can't, because the population of this country is expanding at a rate that it just literally cannot cope with. And yet there are still people in this country. It was interesting at that march, did you see there was one person holding up a banner which said, pro-immigration, everyone except Shabana Mahmood. Well, Shabana Mahmood was born in Birmingham. She's a Brit, but how racist are those people if they think everyone with a brown skin is a migrant? Just a little fact there.
Who do you think is more problematic, the party reform on his right flank, on Starmer's right flank, or the Greens on the left? And how does he navigate that, considering the geopolitics?
Oh, they're both a problem for him. The Greens are a problem because people who up till now had voted Labour feel the Greens as a different and a better alternative, although they're so not. But anyway, so the people who are hard left in the party, voters who are hard left, would go to the Greens. Reform is a problem on in a totally different line. It's going to be interesting in these local elections to see what happens. But I think there's going to be a tsunami of support for reform, and I don't know if this momentum with reform can keep up. I kind of hope it does, but I think he's very scared of reform in electoral terms. But I think he's scared of the Greens in terms of just taking the few voters he has left away from him. I think he's being attacked from both sides, and both the parties he's been attacked by are currently powerful.
It'll be fascinating to see how the local elections
I can't wait.
play out.
I hope it's like I think it's going to be. I'm hoping reform sweep the board, but if they don't and the Greens sweep the board, God help us. If that's the coalition we end up getting in the next election, if it's going to be Labour and the Greens,
Do you think we're headed that way for a more left-leaning coalition?
Steph, I really hope not. I just think, you hear the ideas coming out of the Green Party. Zach Polanski thinks all you have to do is go and have a chat with Putin and everything will be okay. Every world leader on the planet has tried to do that. But Zach Polanski, and he's, thinks he can, the man who up until a couple of years ago was hypnotising women into thinking their breast could be bigger, thinks he can go and sort out that problem.
The Kremlin will absolutely listen to him.
Do you know what?
For sure.
They'll chuck
Not a shadow of doubt.
Putin will take one look at him and throw him in a cell, never to emerge. I saw them all as well dancing, Polanski and Hannah Spencer dancing at this march on Sunday, and I thought, my God, I'm old enough to remember a time when politicians were big beasts. There were people to be respected, even if you didn't agree with what they said. They were people of the world. They ran businesses. They ran corporations. They had lived in the world and contributed to that world long before they got into politics. And I look at this current lot, Polanski dancing next to a bloke in stockings and suspenders and a string vest, and I'm thinking, that's the guy that wants to be our next Prime Minister. God help us.
Well, very exciting few weeks ahead with the local elections. So I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you to you, Carole, for joining us in studio. Please do hit the like, share, subscribe and hype button. We'll see you back here tomorrow.